Hi kindergartners, I'm here today to do a read aloud with you. The book we're going to read today is called Desmond and the Very Mean Word. Before we get started, we're always going to do a little bit of brain work so that we can better understand the book. The good reader question today is, when was a time that you had a problem and maybe it got solved, but it didn't feel solved for a long time? So think of a time you had a problem, but it didn't feel solved for a long time. If you can, pause the video and tell someone about that problem that you had. Great, thank you for doing that. A word we need to know to better understand this book is the word forgive. Let's clap that together. Forgive. Let's tap that on our bodies. Forgive. Let's robot that. Forgive. Let's always count. Forgive. 2 syllables in the word forgive. Forgive means when you let your heart stop feeling angry and you let your heart start to heal. Before we get started, let's notice and wonder on the front cover. That might give us some clues as to what might happen in this story. When I look at this cover, I notice that there is a kid on a bicycle. It looks to me like the kid is moving really fast. Oh, I also noticed that there's some other kids in the background and they have their mouths open and their arms up. It looks like they're shouting. I'm looking at their faces too, and it looks like they're in the red. That makes me wonder what they're shouting or why they might feel in the red. I know some things about this character's identity. This character's name is Desmond, and Desmond identifies as a boy, he identifies as a kid, and he identifies as black. The author of this book is also named Desmond. His name is Archbishop Desmond Tutu. In thinking about the genre of this book, I got a little bit confused because when I read this book, it really felt like a fiction story, like a story from someone's brain. But then I read the author's note at the end, and the author, Desmond Tutu, wrote to give some more information, and he said, this story was inspired by something that actually happened to me when I was growing up in South Africa. He also says that some of the characters are very similar to some of the people in his own life. So that makes me think that this book is kind of fiction, but also has some parts that might be true, that might be the same as Desmond Tutu's life. All right, let's get started. Desmond was very proud of his new bicycle. He was the only child in the whole township who had one, and he couldn't wait to show it to Father Trevor. Father Trevor was a kind and loving person, and when he laughed, his eyes sparkled and his whole body shook. Father Trevor didn't care if you were rich or poor, black or white, old or young. He raised his hat and smiled at everyone he met. He especially loved children and would even let them play marbles on the floor of his office, where he met with the many important people who came to visit. As Desmond sped down the dirt road, he admired the bicycle's shiny black body and the white stripe on the back fender. Oh, it was so beautiful. When he turned the corner, he saw a gang of boys, and they saw him. They stepped into the road and blocked his path. He didn't dare stop. What if they took his bike? Desmond gripped the handlebar and raced toward the boys, dust flying behind him. The boys scattered out of the way, but the tallest, a red-haired boy, spat out a very mean word. The other boys laughed and shouted the mean word again and again. Desmond pedaled away as fast as he could. His heart pounded and his chest ached. The author's giving me some clues about how Desmond's feeling. The author said his heart pounded, so I know he's high energy. And it said his chest ached, his chest hurt, which makes me think he's feeling unpleasant. When Desmond got to Father Trevor's office, he threw down his bicycle. His teeth were clenched, and the mean word kept repeating itself over and over inside his head. Father Trevor looked up as Desmond burst into his office. "What's wrong?" he asked. Father Trevor always knew when something was wrong. "Nothing," Desmond said. Father Trevor bent down until he was looking directly into Desmond's face. His smiling eyes always made you feel like you were the most important person in the world. "You can tell me anything." Desmond glanced down at his dusty bare feet and finally muttered, "Some boys, they shouted a very mean word at me." "I'm sorry that happened," Father Trevor said. "They hurt your feelings, didn't they?" Desmond's shoulders relaxed a little bit, and he nodded. Can you forgive them? Father Trevor asked. No, never, Desmond said, his fist balled at his sides. I will get them back. I heard that word forgive, so Father Trevor must be asking Desmond if his heart is ready to stop feeling angry. And I heard Desmond say no, never, so I think Desmond isn't ready for his heart to stop feeling angry. Father Trevor sighed. That is the problem, Desmond. You will get them back, then they will get you back, and soon our whole world will be filled with nothing but getting back. That night, Desmond lay in bed trying to read his comic book by candlelight. Instead of the words on the page, he kept seeing the mean word written over and over again. I can tell that because he's thinking about that mean word, it makes me think that his heart is still feeling angry, and he's not ready for his heart to stop feeling angry yet. Makes me also wonder, though, how he's ever going to solve this problem, how his heart is going to feel better. The next day, no matter how fast he pedaled to school, Desmond couldn't leave the mean word behind. All day, the mean word followed him around like a shadow in the hot sun. As he rode home that afternoon, he saw the boys again. His hands and face felt hot. Maybe, he thought, if he got even, he would stop thinking about what they had called him. So he raced past the boys and shouted the meanest word he could think of. He could hear the boys running after him. Desmond pedaled hard, his heart pounding. Finally, he looked back. The boys had given up the chase. That means they stopped. At first, Desmond felt proud. But soon, he began to feel something else. It was not a good feeling. The mean word he had said left a bitter taste in his mouth. So I know that Desmond tried to solve the problem. He said, oh, if I yell a mean word, maybe I'll feel better. But the author's making me think that he doesn't feel better, because it said he started to feel something else and it wasn't a good feeling. I still don't know how Desmond's going to solve this problem. After school the next day, Desmond went to Father Trevor's. Are you feeling any better, Desmond? Father Trevor asked. Desmond shook his head from side to side and frowned. When people say mean words to us, we often feel ashamed of who we are, Father Trevor said. They can make us feel a little less lovable, but it's not true. Desmond, everything we do matters. If we smile or if we frown, if we say something nice or something mean. When we hurt someone, Father Trevor said as he got up, it hurts us too. That night, Father Trevor dropped in to see Desmond's family. Are you still thinking about the mean word? Father Trevor asked. Desmond slowly nodded. Our hearts are fragile and easily hurt. This is why we were given a way to heal them. It's called forgiveness. How can I forgive them? They haven't said they're sorry. You don't need to wait until someone says they're sorry to forgive them. You have the power to forgive whenever you're ready. I'm not ready, Desmond said. That's fine, Desmond. Only you will know when you are. Father Trevor got up to leave. Desmond felt a lump in his throat. Father Trevor said very softly, let me tell you a secret, Desmond. When you forgive someone, you free yourself from what they have said or done. It's like magic. It sounds like forgiveness will help Desmond, but it also seems like it's a really hard thing to do. Because I know Desmond wants to feel better, but he's really trying and he just isn't ready yet. A week later, Desmond was riding his bicycle down the street when he saw the boy with red hair surrounded by two older boys. I think this is the same boy that yelled a mean word at him. That'll teach you, one of the other boys said, dunking the head of the red-haired boy in a bucket of water. Seconds later, the boy managed to raise his head, his wet hair standing up. He looked like he was about to cry. To Desmond's surprise, he felt sad for the red-haired boy. A few days later, Desmond ran into the neighborhood market to buy his father a newspaper. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw a flash of red. Turning, Desmond realized that it was the red-haired boy. He was standing alone in front of the candy counter. It was filled with lollipops and delicious chocolates. Desmond wanted to say something, but what? Thinking of the mean word he had shouted at the boy, Desmond finally blurted out, "I'm sorry for what I said." The boy looked at him, speechless. Finally he stammered, I guess well... Desmond didn't need the boy to say he was sorry. It would have been nice, but as Father Trevor had said, it really wasn't necessary. "I forgive you," Desmond said quietly. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, Desmond felt a little stronger and a little braver and stood up a little bit taller. After buying the newspaper, Desmond went outside. The red-haired boy was sitting on a milk crate under a shady tree. The boy stood up and moved toward him. Desmond froze. The boy looked around to see if anyone was watching, then handed Desmond a piece of candy. For just a moment, Desmond looked into the boy's eyes and smiled. Then he hurried back to get on his bike, first popping the piece of chocolate in his mouth. The author didn't tell me how this boy is feeling, so I need to guess based on the clues that the author did give me, or the illustrator gave me. Right now I'm going to stop and ask you to make an inference, a guess, about how this boy is feeling based on what the author told you and what the illustrator showed you. If you can share that with someone close to you. My answer is that I think that this boy is feeling in the green. And I think that because the illustrator is showing me a small smile on his face, but also the words told me that this boy gave Desmond a piece of candy, and that makes me think that the boy is feeling like the problem is solved, just like Desmond is, because he's trying to give him something. As the sun set behind the houses, Desmond pedaled home fast, not out of fear, but out of joy. The cool wind felt good against his face. He wanted the sweet taste of chocolate on his tongue to last forever. Slowly, he spread his arms out wide as if he were flying. At last, Desmond knew what it felt like to be free. It was as if he could embrace the whole world in his outstretched arms. Our good reader question today is, how did Desmond feel when he decided to forgive the boy? How did he feel? Remember that a good answer will include evidence from the text, something the author told you or the illustrator showed you. Take a second, you can pause the video and tell someone close to you, or you can just say it out loud. My answer is that I think that Desmond felt stronger. And I think that because the author told me, "I forgive you," Desmond said quietly. As soon as the words were out of his mouth, Desmond felt a little stronger. Today we are going to practice a skill that we've been practicing all week, and that is fiction number 5, which is where we compare two texts, where we take two texts and we think about how they're the same and how they're different. Today, a book that I thought of that has some things that are the same and some things that are different is the book The Sandwich Swap. We read this a long time ago, and in this book, two characters have a problem. They both say mean words about the food that each of them is eating, because their food is different. They get in an argument because they say mean words. But then at the end of the book, they decide to solve their problem by using their words. Today we're going to use a Venn diagram to help us compare and contrast these two books. So on one side I'm going to write Desmond, because one circle is going to be about the book we just read, Desmond and the Very Mean Word. On the other side, I'm going to write Sandwich Swap, because that's the other book we're going to compare it to. Sandwich Swap. Okay, so this side is about things that are true about the story we just read, Desmond and the Very Mean Word. This is for things that are true about the Sandwich Swap. And this section in the middle is for things that are the same, things that are true about both of these books. One of the things that I think is true about both of these books is that they both have a problem, and they both have a problem where the characters said mean words. So I'm going to write that in here. The characters said mean words. Another thing that's the same is that in both books, the characters decided to forgive the other characters that they had problems with. They decided to let their hearts stop feeling angry. So I'm going to write, the characters forgave each other. The characters forgave each other. They solved the problem partially because they let their hearts stop feeling angry. They said mean words and they forgave each other. Today, your task is to contrast these books. So you're going to take this Venn diagram, you can draw your own, or you can just use this one right here and verbally answer the question. But our task today is to try to find some things that are different about these two books. Maybe the characters are different. Maybe something about the problem is different. Maybe something about the solutions is different. Maybe the settings are different. We're going to choose something that is different about these two books. Then I'll write what's true about Desmond, and then I'll write what's true about the sandwich swamp. We are excited to see your work. Please send us pictures or videos of you talking about your thinking about what is different about these two books. Thank you so much for reading with me today.